Hey,
That's kind of Cracker was actually great. It was great. Yeah, that's beer called before. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living. We're a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. Our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands and waters of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. In a similar fashion, we acknowledge how much of what we know in this country today, including our culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, have been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to their labors and sacrifices, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. Please join me for our opening song, Woke Up This Morning. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. Well, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. Well, I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. All day long I keep my mind stayed on spirit. Well, all day long I keep my mind stayed on spirit. All day long I keep my mind stayed on spirit. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Good morning. And it's a lovely morning. Kind of a typical November morning. And so this is a time we set aside to give ourselves permission. I really like that idea of giving ourselves permission to actually relax and to center ourselves. So just invite us to get comfortable, as comfortable as you can.
whether you're sitting in your house or in your car, um, just as comfortable as you can get at this moment. I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. And taking in 3 nice, deep breaths that cleanse our insides as we breathe in. We take in the oxygen that nature creates, and then we release the carbon dioxide and everything that we don't need within us, and what is needed on the outside by the plants and the trees, carbon dioxide. And so a nice deep breath in, and hold it, and release it. Nice deep breath in, holding it, and release it. One more nice deep cleansing breath in, holding it, and release. And so today, being Thanksgiving week, I want to focus on gratitude. November, for a lot of things, is noted as the month of gratitude. However, I believe, gratitude is important, 365, 66 days a year. Because to me, gratitude is what centers me. When I'm grateful, truly grateful for something, the stuff around doesn't bother me as much. And so I just invite us to go within and think of the things that you're grateful for. Grateful for the breath. I'm grateful that I actually woke up this morning and have another 24 hours maybe of life. I'm grateful for all of the beauty that surrounds me, that surrounds all of us. Plants, the flowers, the animals, the beautiful sky, the plentiful earth. So I'll give everybody a few moments to just go in and realize what you are grateful for in this moment.
Grateful.
I'm also grateful for all the lessons learned from the people that have been in my life, that are in my life. I'm grateful for the farmers that plant and grow the food that we eat. For all those who participate in allowing this food to come to our tables. And I'm grateful for you. And I just say thank you to the divine, to the universe, and to spirit. And so with that, I just invite us to wiggle your toes and fingers and welcome ourselves back to the room. And so it is. Today's, oops. One moment. Dropsy there. Today's reading, there's two parts to it. The first part is the difference between fact, opinion, and truth. That's a mouthful. Given the strong and varied opinions that surround many social topics and matters, examining the differences between fact, opinion, and truth may prove more useful to leaders as they sort through their own views about contemporary social issues. A fact is indisputable. Facts can be objectively verified and proven through evidence. Facts are not decided by how many people believe in them. They are concrete realities that don't change. Facts are determined by objective, not subjective measurement. As evidence mounts, facts become irrefutable. Over time, we acknowledge facts, we don't create them. Opinions. Yes, this is a good one, because everybody has them. Opinions on the hand are valued judgments that expresses a feeling or view. They may or may not be supported by facts. Opinions rely on assumptions and are exceedingly dependent on the perspective of those holding them. They are also highly temporal and can change quickly when new information or facts become available. A deep commitment to an opinion doesn't make it any more or less accurate. Truth. Truth is created by people to describe how things really are. They are best described as a state of belief that is thought to represent or a universal reality. We decide what truths we are willing to believe. Truths don't have to be logical or verifiable. They simply have to be shared. They can arise from faith, commitment, or experience. When like-minded people agree as to a given reality of how things are, then a truth emerges. When we're really faced with information that challenges what we believe, our first instinct is to make the discomfort, irritation, or vulnerability go away by resolving the dissonance. We might do this by rejecting new information, decreasing its importance, or avoiding it altogether. The avoiding, yes. The greater the magnitude of the dissonance, the greater is the pressure of the reduce dissonance. That's by quote by Leon Festinger. In these challenging moments of dissonance, we need to stay curious and resist choosing comfort over courage. It's brave to invite new information to the table, to sit with it, and to hear it out. It's also rare these days. As Adam Grant writes, intelligence is traditionally viewed as the ability to think and learn. Yet, in a turbulent world, there's another set of cognitive skills that might matter more: the ability to rethink and unlearn. And this is from Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart book. And so it is. I forgot to do one thing.
So we've got our declaration, which will be up on the board in a minute. And the invitation is to say this 3 times. Okay. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And finally, we are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is.
In a world where facts are flavors, each mind is its own stew. Bob says the sky is purple, while Sally swears it's blue.
Johnny's got his own dimension, where pizza floats through air. And if you try to check his truth, man, the courts might not be there.
We all have our own reality, it's a wild mind jamboree. But truth's not up for negotiation, yeah, the courts hold the key. Opinions dance like disco balls, funky and impulsive. But when the truth rings out in bell chimes, the judges stay conclusive. Marsha claims she invented the time machine in her backyard shed, while Kevin's building castles in the clouds with his thoughts inside his head.
The world's a comic carnival of ideas, each one totally unique. But if truth were as wobbly as a jelly bean,
The law would be antique.
oh, come on now, don't you judge, your thoughts are your own art. But don't try to turn reality into a DIY shopping cart.
We're all free to dream and scheme, let our imagination fly. Yet there's one reality that's on call when wild ideas go awry. We all have our own reality, it's a mad chaotic spree. But truth must stand like a a lighthouse, firm and solid, you see. Opinions twirling, riotous, spin a carnival, a creative vibe. But the court of truth lays down the law and keeps the chaos in its tribe. So raise a glass to every thinker, every mind that's off the chart. For in this crazy, quirky life, our truths are merely art.
But let's leave the heavy verdicts to the court's unerring guide. 'Cause while our minds are free to wander, truth still got to abide.
In the grand parade of opinions, let diversity thrive and bloom. But remember, when it's time for justice, the court's the only room. So sing it loud, get wild and funny, let the individual minds prance. But if facts start doing the tango, the courts will lead the dance.
That's the end. Yeah. Yep. So today's title for the talk is Opinion, Facts, or Truth. And basically one of the things is we're going to be looking at whether our beliefs are vested in opinions, facts, or truth. When we hold a belief and it gets revealed as a false opinion or debunked fact, are we open and willing to change our minds? What do we hold as truth that others disagree with? And what do we do when someone we love fundamentally disagrees with one of our values? So many of you may have heard the idea that Ernest Holmes proposed about remaining open at the top. The idea is that remaining open at the top enables us to take on a critical, discerning look at the world as all of this information comes to us. Ernest Holmes offered some ideas that we can use now to face what we're facing. We're in the midst of a country where things that have not happened before are happening. I mean, I remember during the first administration of the current president, there was the frame alternative facts. Anybody remember that idea? Alternative facts. And I say that because by naming them facts, it didn't turn them into facts. It just was this offering that, oh, everyone's opinion is actually a fact. And when you try to convince people about the factual nature of what it is that we think and feel, and even believe sometimes, we cut ourselves off. So we do the reverse of being open at the top. We do the reverse of what Ernest Holmes proposed with the Science of Mind teachings. With the Science of Mind teachings, Ernest Holmes was proposing, he offered a scientific-based way of engaging in faith practices. What if we imagine that there is one power, one presence, one being, one life? If we hold that and let that be our guide, how does our life turn out differently than if we stand in the midst of just saying every idea that comes to me is of equal value? As opposed to lifting some ideas. And I would say what Ernest Holmes was presenting were things that we can hold as truths. So in that notion of opinions, facts, and truths, and what Michael was identifying is that truths not only have the validity of facts, they also have a power to capture and engage our hearts. If you think about some quality of the divine, so for instance, we had one of our teachers in ministerial school. She said that no matter how bad things in her life got, she could always get out of that place by coming to beauty. For her, beauty was this central notion, this central truth that helped her cut through all of the gloss and glimmer and anger and distortion that would surround her. Anybody here ever been confronted with what you think is utter nonsense? And I can't speak for you, but I can speak for me that when I'm confronted with that utter nonsense, I have a choice. And I'll get into it a little bit later, but I have a choice. I can act with discernment, or I can act impulsively and just respond with the same kind of impulsive craziness that's coming at me. Because we all heard the phrase, fighting fire with fire. Well, if they're going to be crazy, I'm going to be more crazy, because my crazy is going to be bigger than their crazy. And I can certainly win out with my crazy over what their crazy is. The difficulty with that is when we pile more stuff into the room, it's a little bit like Stephanie has said repeatedly, believing that there's a pony in there somewhere. But it's much harder to find the pony when the pony is covered with so much stuff. So, reviewing the question of opinions, facts, and truths becomes a series of actions we can take to navigate through this world that we're living in, filled with conflict, filled with crazy ideas, filled with crazy happenings. I didn't imagine when I was in my 20s that we would have people masked on the street, grabbing people, breaking car windows, jumping out of a helicopter to get into apartments and knocking down the doors and pulling people out with zip ties on them. It was not in my imagination that that was going to happen. Now, factually, it is what happened. But what we get sold is that this is protecting us. Somehow, for me, that's why I believe it's an opinion, because when that happens, I don't know about you, but I do know about me, I don't feel safer. I don't feel that having people jump out of helicopters, people who aren't even trained in the skills that our military has, have the capacity to do that in a way that is going to bring more safety. Now, clearly, what I'm stating is my opinion. And the thing that's difficult is that so often what gets pronounced and what gets shared and what gets introduced as an alternative fact is presented as if it's a fact, as if it's truth. And for someone that is not engaging in discernment, which is pausing and considering, and what I would argue, we'll argue later on in the talk, because I'm going to be looking at three things. I'm going to be looking at the what, I'm going to be looking at the how, and I'm going to be looking at the so what now. So we've got three things: the what, the how, and the so what now. So with the what is an opinion? What is a fact? What is a truth? And Michael talked about it very clearly in his talk, and he will send out the talk so you'll all have that very clear definition, I'm just going to go through a brief restatement about it. Opinion is a personal belief. It's a viewpoint, it's a judgment, and it's subjective. It's my own. I have an opinion about what flavors I like. Opinion can be related to when you go into Baskin and Robbins 31 flavors, and there aren't many Baskin and Robbins anymore, so please forgive my outdated referral to an institution which is not really around all that much. But, you know, there are ice cream places. You go there and there may be a particular flavor that is something that really appeals to you. And you may have found, you're surprised that that flavor that you adore, somebody else is like, ugh. They're not enthused by that at all. When my kids were just little, I used to love a blackberry ice cream that we could get at a place on the Jersey Shore. I loved it. But it wasn't something my ex-wife particularly cared about. She didn't order blackberry ice cream. I know, it's shocking. With the opportunity to have blackberry ice cream, that was not what she had. So an opinion is an individual experience. And it's very emotionally driven. Oh, that's exactly what I believe. That's exactly what I think. Oh, part of it, when we have that drive, that push, that inner emotion, that inner connection, it can trap us into believing that we have landed on a truth or a fact. And we think, I, in the center of my world, have found the truth. And I am going to preach this truth to everyone I know. An example of an opinion is an idea that classical music is very soothing. The problem is that classical music may be very soothing to me, but for somebody else, that way that music is constructed and played and produced may not be soothing. It may not be something that when they hear the radio, they're like, oh, that's soothing. I'll listen to that. They may quickly go over that station. And again, I'm kind of looking at the old cars that have that radio dial, as opposed to the new cars, which just jump electronically to the next station. But the idea of turning the knob really captures the notion of opinions. So a fact, whereas an opinion is subjective, it's deep inside of me. And other people's opinions are deep inside of them. A fact is something that's objective. It's out in the real world. And I know there's been some question lately, but there has been something that went on for hundreds of years called science and the scientific method. And the scientific method was based on observations and based on information and based on a repetition. You would be able to say that certain things suggest certain things. Now we live in a world where that factual basis has been challenged by alternative facts. The idea that, you know, there's a really good study, there isn't, but there's a really good study that shows that Tylenol in women who are carrying a baby will make that baby autistic. Now, the problem with these so-called alternative facts is that they aren't reproducible. They don't happen with the regularity, the consistency that you see. And that's one of the things you're looking for in science. In fact, you're looking for consistency, that something is going to show up in a certain way. And this is where it can get a little bit tricky, because with the science of mind, we can sometimes be really pissed off and say, God isn't listening to me. The Spirit is not cooperating with me. I want X, and X is not showing up in my life. Well, a difficulty with the notion of confounding fact and truth, confounding fact and truth and opinion, is that sometimes we have hidden beliefs. And when things don't unfold the way we like, I want to, my treatment is that I'm going to go to work every day and I'm going to just be glorified in the fabulousness of my work. Now, Michael is laughing because sometimes that's not what happens. But part of it is that I don't believe that it will happen. And I have to clean out my own beliefs in order to let it happen. There's a big difference between the idea of making something happen, which is a very Western civilization, white patriarchy way of looking at the world. We are going to make this happen. And we're watching this make this happen with all kinds of things. This morning, Michael was reacting to something that my sister posted on Facebook about how the Department of Education has decided that nursing and speech language pathology and physical therapy, those aren't professions anymore. Oh, and by the way, those are frequently filled with female positions. So these female positions have been discounted as being non-professional, but that's not happening to so-called male professions. And again, I bring this up because sometimes we have a better understanding about facts when we can see their counters, when we can engage with and understand. And another example of a fact is that water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. That's just what it does. 100 degrees centigrade, the substance water is going to boil. You can explore it. Okay, look, that time it was 110 or 101 and 99. There's going to be a slight variation based on your elevation, based on things, but it's going to be pretty much in that space. With facts, we're going to see a consistency. Like I said, opinions, not everybody loved the blackberry ice cream. If you want to boil water, get it to 100 degrees Celsius. And I don't know what the thing is for Fahrenheit. They did, okay, 112 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, finally, 212. Finally, the notion is that truth is immutable, and it's the idea that it's unchanging. And again, I turned to philosophical or spiritual foundations as a means of looking at truth. I mean, philosophers have been talking about truth for as long as we have recorded philosophical ideas and discussions. Because we've lived in a world that has continued to encounter opinion, fact, and truth. An example of a truth is that love is a universal aspect of human existence. Now, like I said, I have a spiritual teacher from ministerial school, and her big immediate way of getting back to what is good in the world was looking to beauty. You may want to take a moment and just consider, what is the quality in life that captures your understanding, your aha? What is it that refreshes you? What is it that renews you? What is it that invigorates you? What is it that you hold passion about? And there's something so pure about this. This remains something that is consistent in your life. It may be that you value love or wholeness or unity or truth or beauty or presence. But in answering the question, what? Knowing our own truth, knowing what really lights us up, knowing what really gets us over whatever challenges we face is something that can quickly turn us around. When opinions and, I'm going to say it, alternative facts are laid on us, and we can start to feel inundated, overwhelmed, and unsettled. So that's a quick layout on the difference between opinion, fact, and truth. Now, how do we deal with that? Every day we're faced with just so much information. We're at a time where one of the reasons that we've been very passively moving towards artificial intelligence is that it's hard to sort through so much. And one of the difficulties with artificial intelligence is when artificial intelligence can't find something, it makes it up. Artificial intelligence is like, oh, it's this. But you really have to research it, because what artificial intelligence says is it. It's not necessarily it. So we've got all of this information coming into us. And that's where we have the how of the practice of discernment. The practice of discernment means we can stop. We don't have to just keep going on and saying, well, artificial intelligence said this, so it must be true, because artificial intelligence is always right. It isn't. Well, yeah, you might get a disclaimer. I mean, there's a commercial which is out talking about artificial intelligence, and it's like, artificial intelligence lets you turn on your light. It can let you drive your car. Oh, yeah. It can let your child do their homework. But it doesn't do really well at fixing the broken water line. There are some things that are really not under the power and dominion of artificial intelligence. And in this time where there's so much information coming in, I mean, I remember hearing things when I was a kid about how different the world was from my childhood from what it is that my grandmother experienced. My grandmother was born prior to the turn of the 1900s. She was born in 1898. Now, if you look at her work record, you wouldn't have known that, because my grandmother retired at the age of 65 and then went back to work and got hired as a 55-year-old. And then she worked another 10 years and retired. And then she went back to work, not as a 75-year-old, but she went back to work again as like a 60-year-old. Yes, my grandmother relied on alternative facts, and the people that were working with her relied on her presentation of alternative facts because they needed a nurse, which nowadays is no longer a profession, but at least in her day, it was a big profession. And she kept going back to it because it was a good profession. And it was both something that was enabling her to care for people and also be financially rewarded. My grandmother did her nursing after she and her husband were bankrupted. They had been buying houses and flipping houses back in the 1950s. And they had finally saved up and they were going to buy their house. And they had a contractor who just cheated them out of everything. My grandfather had a heart attack and died. My grandmother, though, kept on working. I say this because with the idea of discernment, we are able to navigate through what comes to us and find a way. Find a way when we don't think there is a way. With discernment, we can let go of all of the voices that say, this is too much, you can't do it. With discernment, we can challenge ourselves to listen to those other stories. Those stories of people who succeeded. Those stories of people who kept on trying. Thomas Edison is known for inventing a light bulb and inventing a bunch of other things, but Thomas Edison is also known for all of the ways that he failed to come up with a light bulb. There are lots of people who have gone through failure, but they're not known for their failure. They're known for coming to success. Lucille Ball was not initially known for her success. And even as a person in her life, she wasn't particularly funny. But she was able to capture something and engage in a way that was very humorous, in a way that captured people, in a way that lifted and entertained people. Tom Cruise was not someone who was able to read easily. He's talked about his experience with dyslexia. So you have dyslexia, and his career has been to learn really complicated parts with lots of lines. He's not in movies where he's saying yes or no. He's got lots to say and lots to convey. With the practice of discernment, by stopping and cutting ourselves off from all of those opinions that say, nope, you can't do it. You're absolutely right. That first impulse of, I can't do it. I can't get through this. With discernment, we can say that there's something bigger than me in this universe. With discernment, we can turn to truth. We can turn to power. We can turn to light. We can turn to life and let it lift us up. We've all tried to carry on. We've all tried to do things. And it leaves us feeling exhausted. By leaning into that quality of truth, by leaning into light or beauty or good or power, by leaning into our soul song, we are able to overcome all of the voices and opinions that say we're done. So that's the how. It's discerning. It's stopping our going with the flow of opinion. It's stopping our just automatic acceptance of what people tell us. And it's believing in truth. It's letting ourselves come home to truth rather than wandering. I mean, we've got all the stories of people wandering in the desert for 40 years. Metaphysically, the idea of the 40 years is that's a lifetime. And when you're through that lifetime, you can start anew. Let that lifetime be a moment rather than be 40 years. We don't have to take it literally. The Hebrew people wandering through the desert for 40 years does not mean, okay, I got to be stuck like this for 40 years. Boo-hoo. I'll start now and I'll be good. We don't have to be reading it so literally. The idea is that it's a map. We can let ourselves wander. We can find ourselves lost in the desert. And again, this was about a 12-mile wandering. I'm sure all of us can get lost in 12 miles, but I'm also sure that it's not going to take all of us 40 years to get back to where we want to be in those 12 miles. Okay, so the final thing, we've got the how. The how is discernment. And discernment is stopping. Discernment is opening to truth. It's opening to that quality of the divine, that quality of spirit, that aspect which always knows what is. The idea is, what now? The what now is simple, simply said, but it's a little harder. It's the idea of changing our minds. Now, I say that, and it is a simple expression, but we all know how challenging it can be to change our minds. I love blackberry ice cream, but the problem is that I have not had a taste of blackberry ice cream in about, I'm 62, I'm 63, and the last time I had blackberry ice cream was when I was in my mid-20s. So it's been a while. I still can talk fondly about blackberry ice cream, but it's not what I have available. So am I receptive to the idea that there might be something else out there? Changing our minds is at the core of what Ernest Holmes talked about with the idea of remaining open at the top. Am I willing to change my mind? Am I willing to let go of my hold on my opinions? And again, I say that it's just a simple idea, but it's not necessarily an easy thing to do. I'm not claiming that changing our minds is easy. We have all been brought up about how smart we are, or about how it is that we finally come up with our idea about how the world works. And when something comes at us and tells us that it's not that simple, we don't like it. Many people are familiar with the story of Galileo. Galileo came up with the radical idea that the earth was not at the center of the universe. Well, anyhow, Galileo's science, though, contributed to the idea that the earth revolved around the sun. And it was in tandem with many other scientists who were looking at things and coming up with ideas. But the Catholic Church said, no, you're wrong. Copernicus was calling on people to change their minds. And even when he was under house arrest for carrying his radical ideas that the universe revolved around the earth, he continued to hold on to the new changed idea that what he had been taught was not what was. We have that capacity to change our minds. we have the capacity to say, yes, Galileo was right, Copernicus was right, these scientists have been right. And yet we're at a particular time where we have a government that is saying, oh no, don't you worry about that. You think you got this idea about vaccines? No. Vaccines are really bad. Don't worry about measles vaccines for little children. Don't worry about them. Measles is not a big deal, except when measles is a big deal. We can change our minds. That's what we have the power to do. Ernest Holmes invited us to remain open at the top, to be flexible in our thinking, to let new ideas come in, to let them throw out ideas that we might have held on to with a great deal of conviction. Now, Michael has talked about how in his upbringing as a Lutheran, he wasn't holding the idea that he was going to let go of that like that. He said he'd have to have something better. And when he found the Science of Mind teachings, he eventually found that it was more harmonious with how he saw and experienced the world. A lot of people get into the Science of Mind teaching because it does seem to align more thoroughly with how we experience the world as operating. There aren't a lot of religions that talk about. There aren't a lot of spiritual practices that talk about the capacity and the power of changing our minds. There are a lot of religions that really like us to hold our minds in a particular lock, in a particular way of being. Science of Mind teachings, the Center for Spiritual Living teachings, are about an openness to changing our minds. So based on these ideas, based on the what, based on the what of opinions and facts and truth, based on the process of discernment, looking to see how am I going to be with these opinions, facts, and truths, and based on the so what now. So what now is I can change my idea. I don't have to keep marching on my path impervious to new information, impervious to new ways of seeing the world. We get to be open at the top. We can choose that. We can say, I am willing to change my mind. And if we're not willing, maybe we can be willing to be willing. So I'm saying, be open to even just to be willing to be willing. Be willing to be willing to change your mind. I'm not ready to change it today, but I'm willing to think about changing it. Again, there's a commercial where a person is talking about, I'm looking at my retirement and I'm all excited about it. And the person that they're talking with is like, I'll think about it someday. I'm not thinking about it today. What I'm saying is be willing to think about it. Be willing to change your mind. That's an action. The willingness is a doorway. It's a crack in the door that lets us change. It lets us be open. To create a world that works for everyone, we have to be willing to critically examine how the world is. We have to be able to say, we were hearing a speaker talk about the idea that we are trying to make America great again is pretending that America one day was great The idea was that it was great for a certain group of people. And we're perfectly happy to let it continue to be great for just that group of people, namely white dudes. It was good for white dudes. Wasn't good for everyone. And the ability to stand up and say that, the ability to critically consider that it was differential, that it didn't support everyone. The idea of pushing back against nursing and physical therapy and speech language pathology, deconstructing and saying those aren't really professions, is counter to what we've known and what we've experienced. So the question is, are we willing? Can we be open at the top? Where is it that we're resistant to it? What beliefs have we staunchly defended that we might start to be willing to let go of? Are we willing to change our minds? Can we reshape our perspectives? That's our call to action. Where might we be more open? When something really challenges us, will we let ourselves be challenged rather than turn away? So I have an affirmation, which Michael will put up on the board. And then the closing song is a song of thanksgiving from two young Native American boys. Okay, so please do this, say this with me 3 times. I value the clarity that comes by distinguishing among truth, facts, and opinions. I value the clarity that comes by distinguishing among truth, facts, and opinions. And finally, I value the clarity that comes by distinguishing among truth, facts, and opinions. And so it is. No, not yet.
Toka shilai ilamaya eloi ilamaya eloi ilamaya eloi Toka shilai ilamaya eloi ilamaya Chanu Bakire Maya Kueroi Hila Maya Eloi Hila Maya Eloi Toka Shilaya
So it is. I want to thank everybody that joined on YouTube and hope you come back next week when Stephanie Scranton will be speaking. She is our practitioner emeritus, and she'll be bringing down the house, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And so thank you very much and see you next week. Now we shall end this. I don't know if I can print or if I can send this out because I forgot